My name is Yvette R. Farrell, 31 years old, and the moment my relationship ended started with one sentence spoken so casually it almost sounded harmless. If you don't like it, then leave. Daniel didn't even look up from his phone when he said it. We were standing in the kitchen under the buzzing overhead light that had been threatening to burn out for months. His suitcase was already open on the counter because he was packing for a guy's beach trip. 3 nights, expensive resort, ocean views, and bottle service, the kind of trip that looks effortless on Instagram and quietly expensive everywhere else. He said it like someone repeating a line they'd used before. If you don't like it, then leave. I remember staring at him for a second, trying to decide if he understood what he had just handed me. Daniel, 29, charming when he wanted to be, careless when he didn't. We had been together a little over 3 years, living together for 1. This wasn't our first fight. It wasn't even our worst one. But it was the first time he said that out loud. Normally, when Daniel dropped that line, I would back down. I'd apologize for being sensitive, for overreacting, for bringing up money again. I'd convince myself I was making things bigger than they needed to be. This time, something inside me went completely still. I looked at him and said quietly, "Fine, I will." He laughed. Not the warm kind, the dismissive kind. Like I had just told a bad joke. Then he went right back to scrolling through his phone. That was the moment everything changed. Not dramatic, not explosive, just clear. He thought it was a bluff. For context, I covered almost everything financially in our relationship. Rent came out of my account. Utilities, groceries, streaming services, internet, even his phone bill most months. Daniel made money, but that was his money. Mine was ours. That was the system he had slowly trained me into accepting. Every time I asked about budgeting, he rolled his eyes and told me I sounded like his father. Every time I questioned a charge, he accused me of being controlling. So when I asked why he had booked a $3,200 resort package for his trip using my credit card without asking, the conversation somehow became about my attitude. That night, Daniel went to bed excited about the trip, talking about beach bars and boat rentals and which outfits he should bring. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't explain. I opened my laptop. By midnight, I had changed every password connected to my accounts. By 12:30, I removed his access from every shared payment platform. By 1 a.m., I froze the credit card he had used to book half the trip. By 2 a.m., I had secured a short-term lease across town. No drama, no announcement, just preparation. The next morning, Daniel kissed my cheek while grabbing his suitcase. "Don't be weird while I'm gone," he said. I nodded. He still thought he had won, and for the first time in 3 years. I let him believe it. Daniel left for his guy's beach trip that morning completely relaxed. He rolled his suitcase across the floor, humming to himself while checking his phone for flight updates. At the door, he gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, like nothing in the world had shifted overnight. "Try not to miss me too much," he joked. I smiled politely. "Have a good trip." He left thinking the argument was over, that he had dropped his ultimatum, I had backed down, and life would continue the way it always had. But the moment the elevator doors closed behind him, the apartment felt different. Not empty, clear. I sat on the couch for a few minutes just listening to the silence. No passive-aggressive comments. No tension sitting in the room like humidity. Just quiet. Then I started moving. I didn't rush. There was something almost calming about the way the process unfolded. I packed only what belonged to me. Clothes from my side of the closet. My laptop. Important documents. A few personal items that actually meant something. Everything else I left exactly where it was. Daniel's sneakers by the door. His gaming headset on the desk. The throw pillows he insisted made the living room look stylish. His side of the closet remained untouched. It felt deliberate, clean, like I was removing myself from a life rather than dismantling it. By noon, the landlord confirmed the lease transfer for my new place. By 3 in the afternoon, I paid the deposit. By 6, I was gone. I left the keys on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. Over the years, I had learned that explanations just gave Daniel something to argue with. That night, I sat on the floor of my new apartment eating takeout straight from the container. The place was mostly empty, except for a mattress and a couple boxes, but the quiet felt better than any luxury. My phone buzzed. Daniel's Instagram story. Airport margaritas. Caption, much-needed reset. I watched the video without reacting. An hour later, a Venmo request appeared. $420. Caption, beach vibes aren't cheap, lol. I declined it. 10 minutes later, the text started. "Did you seriously turn off the card?" "Yvette, this is not funny. Answer me." I didn't. Instead, I muted the thread and kept eating my dinner. Around midnight, he called. I watched the phone ring until it stopped. The next morning, I woke up to a screen full of missed calls and unread messages. Somewhere in the middle was a screenshot forwarded from one of his friends in their trip group chat. Apparently, the hotel was having trouble processing payment. Apparently, Daniel was embarrassed. Apparently, this was somehow my fault. What struck me wasn't the anger. It was the assumption. He still believed I would fix it. By the second day of the trip, his tone began to change. The anger faded, and the messages became sarcastic instead. "So you're really doing this? Hope you're enjoying your little power trip." Then came the guilt. "I don't understand why you're punishing me." That one almost made me laugh. Almost. I never responded. Instead, I spent my days rebuilding my routine. Work suddenly felt easier. For months, I had expected heartbreak to make everything harder, but the opposite happened. Without the constant tension of our relationship, my mind felt lighter. No anxiety about what mood Daniel would be in when I got home. No messages during meetings asking why I hadn't liked his Instagram post yet. No walking on eggshells. Just space. On the afternoon of the second day, something interesting happened. One of Daniel's friends messaged me directly. We had never spoken one-on-one before. "Hey, Yvette, Daniel's kind of freaking out. Do you know what's going on with the hotel payment?" I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed the truth. We broke up. Sending the message felt strange. Like saying something out loud that had already been true for a while. Apparently, no one on that trip had budgeted for anything. Daniel had booked most of the activities using my credit card and told everyone they would sort it out later. Without access to my accounts, everything stalled. No spa day. No boat excursion. No VIP dinner reservations. One of his friends ended up covering dinner the second night and was furious about it. Another started making passive-aggressive comments about financial planning. After that, Daniel stopped posting stories. The beach photos disappeared. By the third night, the trip looked very different from the glamorous getaway he had imagined. That was when the message arrived. "Can we talk when I get back?" I think we both said things we didn't mean. I stared at the phone for a long time. I thought about all of the times I had swallowed my words just to keep the peace. All the times Daniel told me I was lucky to have him. All the times leaving felt harder than staying. Then I typed a single sentence. "There's nothing left to talk about." I blocked his number after that. Not out of anger, out of respect for myself. The strange thing was, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt finished. 3 days later, Daniel landed back in the city. I only knew because my sister texted me a screenshot from Instagram before I had even finished my coffee. Daniel standing in baggage claim wearing sunglasses indoors. Caption, "Home, exhausted," like nothing had happened. An hour later, he showed up at the apartment. My old apartment. I wasn't there, obviously. But the building has a front desk concierge who recognizes all the tenants. Later that afternoon, he emailed me because I had already updated my emergency contact information. Apparently, Daniel had been confused at first, then annoyed, then loud. "He lives here," he kept saying, as if repeating it would make it true again. When he finally opened the door to the apartment, the reality hit him all at once. Half the closet empty, my desk gone, my laptop missing, no shoes by the door except his. Just space. That was when my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. But the voicemail came through anyway. His voice sounded different this time. Smaller. "Yvette, this isn't funny anymore," he said. "I don't know what you're trying to prove, but you're taking this too far. We can talk like adults. You don't just disappear." I listened to it once, then deleted it. By evening, Daniel had figured out what mattered most. Not me. My money. An email appeared in my inbox. Subject line: "We need to be practical." He asked for temporary access to my accounts, just until he got back on his feet. Rent was due. His credit card was maxed out. The trip had cost more than expected. He reminded me helpfully that I made more money and that we had always been a team. I replied with one sentence: "Teams don't give ultimatums." Then I blocked that email too. The following weekend, I went on a date. Nothing serious. Just coffee with a guy named Marcus. Conversation flowed easily. No tension, no tests, no subtle power plays. It felt like stretching a muscle I had forgotten existed. Meanwhile, Daniel was telling anyone who would listen that I had abandoned him, that I had some kinds of breakdown, that he had dodged a bullet. Maybe he believed that. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't bleeding anymore. The first time I saw Daniel after everything happened was completely accidental. I was at a grocery store near my new apartment, standing in the cereal aisle debating whether I wanted to pretend to be healthy or just buy the sugary stuff I actually liked. It was one of those small, normal moments that feel surprisingly peaceful after you've left a stressful relationship. I had almost forgotten that simple choices like breakfast didn't have to turn into arguments. Then I heard my name. Yvette. The way he said it immediately pulled me back into the past. Soft, careful, almost rehearsed. I turned before I could stop myself. Daniel stood a few feet away holding a shopping basket. He looked different, not physically thinner or anything dramatic, just diminished somehow. His hair was messy, the kind of careless look he used to call his I don't care style, but now it felt more like he simply hadn't bothered. Inside the basket were exactly 3 items: instant noodles, 2 energy drinks, and a frozen pizza. He smiled like we had run into each other on a normal day. Oh wow, he said lightly, stepping a little closer. I've been trying to reach you. I know, I said. Just one word, neutral, calm. His smile flickered for a moment. Can we talk? He asked. I glanced at the cereal boxes in my hand, then back at him. There's nothing to talk about. That was when the tension came back. The edge that always surfaced when Daniel realized things weren't going his way. So that's it? He said sharply. You just cut me off like I never mattered? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sigh. I simply looked at him. You told me to leave. He scoffed immediately. You know I didn't mean it like that. I did, I replied. A couple people nearby had started pretending very hard to read product labels while clearly listening. Grocery stores have a way of turning quiet conversations into public theater. Daniel crossed his arms defensively. You didn't have to humiliate me like that, he said. Do you know how that trip ended? Everyone thinks I'm irresponsible now. I met his eyes. You are. The words landed harder than I expected. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried a different approach. I recognized the shift immediately. Daniel was switching tactics. I'm struggling right now, Yvette, he said quietly. I thought you loved me. I did, I answered, past tense. For a second, he looked genuinely lost, like someone who had just realized the script he expected everyone to follow had changed. Then his phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced down quickly, annoyance flashing across his face. The mask came back instantly. Whatever, he muttered. I'll be fine. I always am. I nodded. Good. Then I walked away before the conversation could circle back into the same exhausting patterns we had repeated for years. That night, I went on another date with Marcus. Dinner this time instead of coffee. It was simple. Easy conversation, relaxed laughter, no hidden tension. We talked about travel, work, random childhood stories. At one point, I realized something strange. My shoulders weren't tense. For years, I had carried a constant tightness without even noticing it. Being with Marcus felt like breathing normally again. When I got home later that night, there was a notification waiting on my phone. Daniel had posted a long Instagram story about outgrowing people and knowing your worth, the kind of vague message designed to attract sympathy without explaining anything. I muted his account. 2 weeks after the grocery store encounter, the silence around Daniel grew louder. No texts, no emails, none of the carefully worded messages from his friends asking if I would consider talking to him. At first, I assumed he had finally accepted the breakup. Then one afternoon, my bank sent me a security notification. Someone had tried to log into my account. Wrong password. 3 attempts. The location was flagged from Daniel's neighborhood. That was the thing about him. He never handled losing control very well. When charm didn't work and anger failed, he defaulted to entitlement. In his mind, what was mine had always been his too. Later that same day, my sister called. She showed up at Mom and Dad's house, she said, without even saying hello. Apparently, Daniel had driven over unannounced. He told them he was worried about me, that I had changed, that I was shutting everyone out for no reason. He even suggested I might be spiraling emotionally. My mom listened quietly. Then she asked one simple question. Did you tell her to leave? According to my sister, Daniel froze. Just for a moment. Long enough. My dad thanked him for stopping by and politely walked him to the door. When my sister finished telling the story, she added one more thing. I'm proud of you. That night, I realized something important. Daniel didn't miss me. He missed the stability I provided, the lifestyle he had gotten used to, the safety net he thought would always be there. Around the same time, my relationship with Marcus started to feel real. Not intense. Not rushed. Just steady. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He paid for dinner without making it a performance. When I told him I needed a quiet night to myself, he simply said, okay, and meant it. No tests. No ultimatums. Meanwhile, Daniel had started posting again online, but the confidence was gone. His captions were filled with quotes about betrayal and people who can't handle strong personalities. The likes were thinner now, the comments repetitive. He was still performing. I was finally living. And for the first time since he said, if you don't like it, then leave, I understood what he had really given me that night. An exit. And I had been smart enough to take it. Daniel cracked about a week later. And it wasn't public this time. It was quiet, messy, the kind of attempt people make when they've run out of confidence strategies. The email came from a strange Gmail address that looked like a backup account. The subject line was just my name. No punctuation, no greeting, no manipulation wrapped in politeness. I opened it out of curiosity more than anything else. "I don't recognize you anymore," it began. I read the message slowly. Daniel wrote about how cold I had become, how relationships require compromise, how he felt blindsided by my decision. According to him, we both made mistakes and we should talk about fixing them. Then the tone shifted. He said he missed what we had. Not me exactly, what we had. The routines, the apartment, the life we built. I noticed that phrasing immediately. At the bottom of the message, he added one more sentence. "I'm behind on rent, just so you know." There it was again. The real reason. I closed the email without responding. That weekend, Marcus invited me to dinner with a few of his friends. Nothing fancy, just a casual night at someone's apartment with music playing quietly in the background and too much food on the table. For a moment, I almost declined out of habit, expecting the usual pressure that came with meeting a partner's social circle. But Marcus wasn't Daniel, so I went. No one interrogated me about my job or tried to figure out how much money I made. No one ranked people based on careers or status. We talked about travel, movies, embarrassing work stories, and someone accidentally spilled red wine on the table. Instead of blaming anyone, everyone laughed and cleaned it up together. On the drive home, Marcus glanced at me. "You got quiet for a second," he said. "You okay?" I nodded. "I'm realizing something," I admitted. "What?" "How tense I used to be all the time." He thought about that for a moment. "Yeah," he said gently. "That happens when you stop surviving." Meanwhile, Daniel's situation was slowly unraveling. Mutual friends began reaching out to me with cautious messages. Some asked if I would consider talking to him again. Others hinted that he was having a rough time financially. I kept my responses simple. I wished him well. Nothing more. Some people understood. Others didn't. But I had spent too many years explaining myself to people who preferred Daniel's version of events. Then he made his final mistake. One afternoon, he tagged me in a vague social media post accusing an unnamed ex of financial abuse. That was the moment I blocked him everywhere. No dramatic response. No public argument. Just silence. It felt less like winning and more like finally closing a door that had been slamming in the wind for years. About a month after everything ended, I ran into one of Daniel's friends at a bar downtown. I was there with co-workers celebrating the end of a long week. Music played loudly, and the place was crowded enough that conversations blurred together. When I turned around, I found Megan standing behind me. She had been part of Daniel's beach trip group. She looked uncomfortable. "Hey," she said cautiously. "Can I talk to you for a second?" "Sure." She didn't waste time. "Daniel's not doing great." I took a sip of my drink. "I figured," Megan sighed. "He keeps saying he didn't think you'd actually leave. Like ever." That didn't surprise me. Daniel had built his confidence around certainty. Certainty that I would always stay. Certainty that arguments were temporary because I would always soften first. "He thought you were just mad," Megan continued. "That you'd cool off once things got hard for him." I nodded slowly. "That sounds like him." She hesitated before adding something else. He didn't really have a backup plan. None of us realized how much you were covering financially until the trip fell apart." Fix it. That word again. I didn't feel angry hearing it anymore. Just detached. Like listening to a story about someone I used to know. Megan looked down at her drink. "He's been telling people you changed," she said quietly. "That you became cold." I met her eyes. "He told me to leave." She nodded. "Yeah, he mentioned that part eventually." We stood there in silence for a moment. Then she said something that surprised me. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're the bad guy." I shrugged slightly. I don't need to be the good one either. When I walked back to my table, I realized something important. Daniel's version of the story was starting to crack. Not because I defended myself, because reality eventually speaks for itself. Later that night, Marcus held my hand across the table and smiled. "You look lighter," he said. I was. For the first time, the past felt like something behind me, instead of something waiting to pull me back. Daniel made one final attempt. It came in the form of a package left outside my door one evening. No return address. But I knew exactly who it was from. Inside was a shoebox wrapped in soft tissue paper, the kind people use when they're trying to make something feel sentimental. Photos, movie tickets, little souvenirs from trips we had taken. On top was a folded note. "I found these while cleaning," it said. "Thought you might want them. I still don't understand how we got here." I sat on the floor for a while looking through the box. Not sad. Not angry. Just thoughtful. It felt like I was looking at someone else's relationship, a version of myself that had spent years shrinking to keep everything stable. Eventually, I closed the box. I kept one photograph where I looked genuinely happy. The rest went back inside. Then I threw the box away. That same week, Marcus officially became my boyfriend. There was no dramatic conversation defining the relationship. We were cooking dinner together in his kitchen when he smiled and said, "So we're doing this, right?" I laughed. Yes. That was it. What surprised me most wasn't how easy it felt. It was how quiet my mind was. No constant calculation. No bracing for the next argument. No wondering whether I would be punished for having an opinion. Just peace. Daniel tried once more through a mutual friend, asking if I would at least explain why everything ended. I told him the truth. He already knew. The explanation had come from his own mouth. If you don't like it, then leave. Months later, I heard the final update through friends. Daniel had moved out of the apartment he couldn't afford alone. He was staying with his parents temporarily. The beach trip group chat had gone quiet. One friend stopped talking to him completely after a fight about money. Another eventually messaged me to apologize for believing his side of the story. I never replied. Closure doesn't always come from conversations. Sometimes it comes from watching someone live with the consequences of the words they were so confident saying. Daniel thought I was trapped, because I had always stayed, because I had always softened first, because I had always apologized first. He didn't realize that ultimatums only work when the other person is more afraid of losing you than losing themselves. I wasn't anymore. Marcus and I moved in together slowly. Separate finances, shared responsibilities, clear boundaries, the boring, healthy things Daniel used to mock. One night, months later, Marcus asked me a question. "Do you ever miss him?" I thought about it honestly. Then I shook my head. "No," I said. "I miss who I was before I started shrinking." Marcus squeezed my hand. The irony of everything was simple. Daniel got exactly what he asked for. I left. And this time, I didn't look back.